Emma Cole had never seen so many aliens. In one place, she walked through the massive hallway of Vega Prime Station, her eyes moving from one strange face to another. Tall creatures with blue skin stood next to small beings made of living rock. Floating shapes of light drifted past. Warriors covered in thick armor. The air smelled different here, like metal and flowers mixed together. She was 26 years old and the youngest diplomat Earth had ever sent to the Galactic Assembly. Her hands were cold and her heart beat fast. She did not belong here, not yet, maybe. Not ever, but Earth needed every representative it could find, and she had passed all the tests. The hallway was wide enough for 100 people to walk side by side. Giant windows showed the stars outside, bright and endless. Emma had dreamed of seeing space since she was a little girl. Now she was here, and all she felt was small. She stopped near a group of aliens who looked like tall insects. They had 4 arms and eyes that reflected light like mirrors. They were speaking in low voices, and her translation device picked up their words. "He is coming today," one of them said. The human, the one who walked out of the Black Nebula. "Impossible." Another replied, "No one survives the nebula. The energy creatures there consume everything, and yet he did. I have seen the records. 18 months alone. In that darkness, his crew died one by one, but he walked out alive." Emma moved closer, pretending to look at a display on the wall. She had heard this name before. Everyone on Earth had heard it. David Rhee, the man who had become a legend. She had always thought the stories were exaggerated. Governments did that sometimes. They created heroes to make people feel proud, to make them believe that humans deserve their place among the stars. But here, surrounded by aliens from 40 different worlds, she heard the same stories, and these beings had no reason to exaggerate anything about humans. She kept walking, passing through another crowd. This time the aliens were tall and covered in silver scales. Their voices were deep and rough. The Dravari still speak of him, one said. Their greatest champion fell before a single human, not through combat. Through will alone. I heard he stood for 3 days without rest, without food, without water. The Dravari warrior collapsed, but the human remained standing. How is that possible? Humans are soft, weak. Their bodies break so easily. Their bodies, yes, but something else in them does not break. That is what frightens me. Emma felt a strange feeling in her chest. Pride, maybe, or fear. She was not sure which. She entered the main assembly chamber. It was enormous, shaped like a half circle with seats rising up on all sides. Thousands of delegates filled the room. The noise was overwhelming at first, hundreds of languages mixing together into a great wave of sound. But as she found her seat in the human section, she noticed something strange. The noise was not random. It had a pattern, a rhythm, like everyone was talking about the same thing. She listened more carefully. Her translation device worked hard to keep up. David Rhee, the human survivor, he ended a war with words alone. No weapons, no army. Just one man. Is it true he communicated with the nebula creatures? They say he learned their language, a language made of light and pain. Emma sat down slowly. The murmurs filled the room like music. Every species, every delegate, every corner of this massive chamber was talking about one person, a human, her people. She had never felt anything like this before. On Earth, humans often felt alone in the universe. They had only joined the galactic community 50 years ago. They were still newcomers, still learning, still trying to prove they belonged. But in this room, aliens who had traveled between stars for thousands of years were whispering about a human with something like awe in their voices. The main doors of the chamber opened. The murmur stopped. Every head turned. Every eye focused on the entrance. Emma stood up without thinking. She needed to see. A man walked through the doors. Just a man. He was not tall, not particularly strong-looking. He wore a simple gray coat that had seen better days. His hair was dark with streaks of gray at the sides. His face was calm, neither smiling nor frowning. He looked like someone she might pass on a street back home, someone ordinary, someone forgettable. But the room had gone completely silent. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy watched this one human walk toward his seat. Emma could hear her own breathing. This was David Rhee. She studied his face, looking for something special, some mark of greatness, some sign of the legend she had heard about. But she found nothing, just tired eyes that had seen too much, just a man carrying invisible weight on his shoulders. He walked past the insectoid delegates. They moved aside, giving him space. He passed the silver-scaled warriors. They lowered their heads slightly, a gesture of respect she had never seen them give anyone. He did not seem to notice. Or maybe he was used to it. Maybe this happened everywhere he went. Emma watched him take his seat in the human section just a few rows away from her. He sat down quietly, folded his hands, and looked straight ahead around her. The murmurs started again, softer now, more careful. He looked so ordinary. That is what makes them dangerous. Humans look weak until they are not. I heard he carries no weapons ever. He says he does not need them. Arrogance, no, something worse, confidence. Emma kept her eyes on David Rhee. He had not looked at anyone since entering. He sat perfectly still, like a stone in a river, letting everything flow around him. She thought about the stories, the Black Nebula, the Drevari standoff, the dozens of impossible situations he had survived through nothing but stubbornness and will. Were they true? All of them. She wanted to ask him. She wanted to understand how one ordinary-looking man had made the entire galaxy remember his name. But she stayed in her seat. There would be time later. For now she watched and listened. She learned what she could from the whispers around her, and she wondered what it meant for humanity that their greatest hero looked so completely, impossibly human. The assembly leader called for order. The summit officially began, but Emma could not focus on the speeches. She kept glancing at David Rhee, sitting quietly, saying nothing, waiting. Something was coming. She could feel it, something that would test everyone in this room. And somehow she knew that when it came, everyone would be looking at the quiet man in the gray coat, the man whose name filled the room before he even arrived. The summit took a break. After 3 hours of speeches, Emma walked through the corridors, her mind full of numbers and treaties and demands. Every alien species wanted something: resources, territory, protection. The galaxy was a complicated place, and humans were still learning how to survive in it. She found a quiet observation deck and stood by the window. The stars looked peaceful from here. It was easy to forget that wars were being fought out there, that entire worlds were dying while diplomats argued. About borders, you are the new Earth. Envoy Emma turned. A woman stood behind her, maybe 40 years old, with short dark hair and sharp eyes. She wore the badge of a journalist. I am Lily Vance, the woman said. I write for the Galactic News Network. I have been covering the summit. Emma Cole, Emma replied, but I think you already knew that. Lily smiled. I make it my business to know things. That is why I wanted to talk to you. I noticed you watching David Reed during the assembly. Emma felt her face grow warm. Everyone was watching him, true. But you looked curious, not clears throat. Afraid. Most people who see him for the first time are afraid. Even if they do not admit it. Why would I be afraid of him? He is human like me. Lily moved to stand beside her at the window. That is exactly why you should be afraid, because he shows what humans are capable of, and that is a terrifying thing. Emma was quiet for a moment. The stories about him, are they true? Which ones? All of them, any of them. The Black Nebula, the Dravari. I have heard so many versions. Lily nodded slowly. I have spent 5 years researching David Reed. I have interviewed survivors, read classified reports, visited the places where he made history. She paused. The stories are true, most of them anyway. Some details get exaggerated over time, but the core of each story is real. Tell me, Emma said. Please, I need to understand. Lily looked at her for a long moment, then began to speak. 10 years ago, David was a science officer on a research vessel called the Morning Star. They were exploring the edge of known space when they encountered an uncharted region, the Black Nebula. Their ship was pulled in by strange gravity waves. They could not escape. Emma listened, barely breathing. The nebula was filled with creatures made of pure energy, living lightning, some people called them. They fed on heat and electricity. They consumed the ship's power systems first. Then they started consuming the crew. Lily's voice was calm, but her eyes were distant, like she was seeing the events as she described them. One by one, David watched his friends die. He could not fight the creatures. He could not run from them, so he did the only thing he could do. He studied them. While they were killing his crew, yes. He watched how they moved, how they fed, how they communicated with each other. They made patterns in the darkness, flashes of light that seemed random at first, but David realized they were talking. Emma shook her head in disbelief. He learned their language. Not completely, but enough. He spent 18 months alone in that nebula. 18 months. In darkness with no heat, barely any food, surrounded by creatures that had killed everyone he loved. And instead of giving up, he learned to communicate with them. Lily turned to face Emma directly. He did not defeat them. He did not escape through strength or cleverness. He simply refused to die. He kept trying day after day until the creatures began to understand that he was not food. He was something else, something that would not stop, and they let him go. They guided him out. They showed him the safe path through the nebula, because in all their existence they had never encountered anything like him. Being that did not give up, a being that tried to understand them instead of just fleeing or fighting. Emma felt tears in her eyes. She wiped them away quickly. And the Dravari? She asked. That story too. Lily nodded. The Dravari are warriors. They respect strength above all else. When they decided to attack a human colony, Earth sent David to negotiate, not because he was a diplomat because he was the only human they might listen to. He challenged their champion. He did, but not to combat. The Drevari have a ritual called the standing. Two opponents face each other and simply stand. No food, no water, no rest. The first one to fall loses. How long did it last? 3 days. The Drevari champion was the strongest warrior on their planet. He had never lost, but David stood there, hour after hour, his body screaming at him to stop. He told me later that he thought about his crew, the ones who died in the nebula. He thought about the colonists who would die if he failed. And he kept standing. Lily's voice dropped to almost a whisper. On the third day, the Drevari champion collapsed. David was barely conscious. His legs had stopped working properly. His heart was beating wrong, but he was still standing, and the Drevari, for the first time in their history, chose peace instead of war. Emma was silent for a long time. Outside the window, the stars burned cold and distant. He is not the strongest human, she finally said. He is not the smartest, so how does he do it? He endures, Lily replied. That is what he told me once. Humans are not special because of what we can do. We are special because of what we can survive. We break and heal. We fall and get up. We lose everything and start again. Other species see that as weakness. They see our soft bodies and short lives and think we are fragile, but they are wrong. Emma thought about Earth's history, the wars, the plagues, the disasters, and after each one, humans rebuilt. They kept going, not because they were strong, but because they did not know how to quit. The aliens are afraid of him, she said. They are afraid of what he represents. One human who will not stop is dangerous, but billions of them, that is what keeps some species awake at night. Lily looked out at the stars. David Ree is not a weapon. He is a warning. He shows the galaxy what happens when you push humanity too far. We do not surrender. We do not break. We just keep coming. Emma nodded slowly. She understood now. The whispers, they fear, the respect. David Ree was not a legend because he was special. He was a legend because he was human, completely, stubbornly, impossibly human. And that was the most terrifying thing in the galaxy. The alarm came on the second day of the summit. Emma was eating breakfast in the diplomatic hall when the lights flickered red. A deep voice spoke through every speaker in the station, announcing an emergency assembly. All delegates were ordered to the main chamber immediately. She ran through the corridors, her heart pounding. Around her, aliens of every shape and size moved with the same urgency. Fear was a universal language. She could see it in their eyes, their movements, their voices. The main chamber was chaos when she arrived. Delegates shouted over each other. Some species had already started arguing. Others sat in terrified silence. Emma found her seat and looked around for David Ree. He was there in the same spot as before, watching everything with calm eyes. He did not look worried. He looked like a man waiting for something he had expected. The assembly leader, a tall being with pale skin and 4 eyes, called for silence. It took several minutes for the room to quiet down. A ship has arrived at the station, the leader announced. It carries an envoy from the Hall Collective. The silence became absolute. Emma felt cold spread through her body. She had heard of the Hollow Collective. Everyone had. They were not conquerors in the traditional sense. They did not invade planets or fight Wars they waited, they watched, and when civilizations grew weak, they consumed them. No one knew exactly what they were. Some said they were machines. Others said they were a hive mind of countless beings. What everyone agreed on was simple: the Hollow Collective did not negotiate, they did not show mercy. They calculated, and then they acted. Doors at the far end of the chamber opened. Something walked through. Emma's breath caught in her throat. The envoy was huge, maybe 3 m tall. Its body was made of metal and flesh twisted together in ways that hurt to look at. Its face had no features except for 2 glowing points where eyes should be. When it moved, she could hear clicking and grinding like gears inside a clock. It stopped in the center of the chamber and spoke. Its voice was many voices at once, high and low, fast and slow, layered on top of each other. We bring message from the collective. You will listen. No one spoke. No one moved. 3 star systems have been designated for acquisition. The collective requires their resources. All current occupants will be removed. Map appeared in the air above the chamber. 3 systems glowed red. Emma recognized one of them immediately. New Haven, a human colony of 2 million people. You have 60 standard days to evacuate. The envoy continued. After this time, the collective will arrive. Resistance will be calculated and eliminated. The chamber erupted. Delegates screamed. Some demanded negotiation. Others called for war. Insectoid species clicked frantically. The silver-scaled warriors roared their anger. Emma saw General Marcus Webb, Earth's military representative, stand up. He was a large man with gray hair and a face like carved stone. His voice cut through the noise. This is an act of war. Earth will not surrender its people to be slaughtered. The Hollow Envoy turned its glowing eyes toward him. Your military capacity has been calculated. Earth possesses 47 combat vessels. The collective will arrive with 12,000. Your resistance is noted, but irrelevant. Webb's face turned red with fury, but he had no response. The arguing continued. Emma watched different factions form before her eyes. Some species wanted to fight alongside humanity. Others wanted to sacrifice the human colony to protect themselves. A few suggested abandoning the summit entirely. Through it all, David remained silent. He sat perfectly still, watching the Hollow Envoy like a scientist studying a new specimen. Then, when the shouting reached its peak, he stood up. The effect was immediate. The noise died down. Every eye turned to the quiet man in the gray coat. He walked slowly down the steps toward the center of the chamber. The Hollow Envoy watched him approach. Without moving, David stopped a few meters away from the massive being. He looked small and fragile next to it. Child standing before a monster. I have a question, David said. His voice was calm, conversational, like he was asking about the weather. The envoy's gears clicked. Speak. What do you fear? The chamber went completely silent. Even the species that had been whispering stopped. The Hollow Envoy did not respond immediately. Emma saw its glowing eyes flicker. Just for a moment. A hesitation from a being that should not hesitate. The collective does not fear, it finally said. Fear is inefficient. David nodded slowly. That is what I thought. You calculate, you measure, you see a species and you count their ships, their weapons, their resources. You add everything up and you know exactly what will happen. That is how you have consumed so many worlds, you make it simple. You make it mathematical. He paused. But you have never faced humans before. The envoy's gears clicked faster. Humans have been calculated. Your species is young, weak. Your technology is primitive. Your bodies are fragile. All true. David agreed. We are young, we are weak, we break easily, but let me tell you something about my species that your calculations might have missed. He turned to address the entire chamber, his voice growing stronger. Humans do not operate on logic. We do not calculate when to surrender. We do not measure when to stop fighting. You can burn our cities, and we will build new ones. You can kill our soldiers and more will take their place. You can beat us down 1,000 times and we will stand up 1,001. He looked back at the hollow envoy. You want to know what we do when everything is taken from us? We get angry, we get stubborn, we become something that your calculations cannot predict. We become spite given form. Envoy was silent. You have consumed dying civilizations, David continued. Species that had already given up. That is what you look for, is it not? Weakness, resignation, the moment when a species accepts its end. But we will never give you that moment. You will come for our world's end. We will fight, not because we will win, because we do not know how to stop. He stepped closer to the envoy, close enough to touch. And when you finally destroy us, if you ever do, we will have cost you more than any species you have ever faced. We will leave scars on your collective that will last 1,000 years. We will make you remember our name. The envoy's eyes flickered again. Emma realized she was gripping her chair so hard her fingers hurt. This has been noted, the envoy finally said. The collective will recalculate. It turned and walked out of the chamber without another word. The doors closed behind it, and slowly, quietly, the delegates began to whisper again, but this time they were not whispering about David Rhee. They were whispering about humans. The station was quiet that night. Most delegates had returned to their ships or private quarters. The corridors felt empty and cold. Emma could not sleep. She kept thinking about David's words, the way the hollow envoy had hesitated, the way the entire chamber had gone silent when a single human stood up to face a monster. She walked through the station without direction, letting her feet carry her wherever they wanted. Eventually, she found herself on the observation deck, the same one where she had talked with Lily. David Rhee was there. He stood by the window alone, staring out at the stars. His gray coat hung loose on his shoulders. From behind he looked older than he had in the chamber, smaller, more tired. Emma almost turned away. She did not want to disturb him, but something made her stay. Something made her speak. That was incredible, she said softly. What you did today, David did not turn around, was it? She walked closer, stopping a few steps behind him. You made the hollow collective hesitate. No one has ever done that. They do not know what to do with us now. They will figure it out. Eventually, they always do. That is what they are built for. His voice was flat, tired, nothing like the confident speech he had given in the chamber. Are you all right? Emma asked. David was silent for a long moment. Then he laughed softly. It was not a happy sound. That is a question I have not heard in a long time. Usually people just want to shake my hand, take pictures with me, tell me how brave I am. He finally turned to face her. Up close she could see the Lines around his eyes, the gray in his hair, the weight of years pressing down. On him, I am David Rhee, he said. Legend, the hero, the man who walked out of the Black Nebula, the man who made the Dravari kneel. Do you know what they call me on some worlds? The unbreakable. He shook his head, but I am just a man. Emma, a tired man who has seen too much and lost too many. Emma did not know what to say. She had expected many things from this meeting. This was not one of them. The stories she began. Lily told me about the nebula, about the Dravari. She said they were true first. First they are true mostly, but she did not tell you everything. She could not, because some things I have never told anyone. He turned back to the window. In the nebula I watched my crew die. Jack Torres was my best friend. We had known each other since childhood. He died on the 42nd day. The energy creatures consumed him while I hid in a storage closet. I could hear him screaming. I did nothing. Emma felt tears forming in her eyes. I did not survive because I was brave. I survived because I was terrified. I hid, I ran, I did whatever it took to see another day. When I finally figured out how to communicate with the creatures, it was not some brilliant insight. It was desperation. I had tried everything else. That was all that was left. He pressed his hand against the window and the Dravari. I did not stand for 3 days because I was strong. I stood because I was too afraid to fall. I knew that if I collapsed, millions of people would die. So I locked my knees and I told myself I would rather die standing than live with their blood on my hands. But you won. Emma said, you saved those people. I did, and I have spent every day since wondering if I deserved to. Jack did not get to survive. My crew did not get to become heroes. They just died screaming in the dark, and I lived by luck, by stubbornness, by refusing to accept what was happening. He turned to face her again. They made me a legend because they needed one. Humans needed to believe we belonged out here, that we could stand beside species who had traveled the stars for millennia, and the aliens, they needed something to fear, something to remind them that humans were not as weak as we looked. So the legend is a lie. David shook his head slowly. Not a lie, a promise. That is what I realized eventually. The legend is not about me. It has never been about me. It is about what humans can become when everything is taken from us. He smiled faintly. It was a sad smile, but real. Every human carries the same fire I do, the same stubbornness, the same refusal to quit. I just happened to be the one standing in the light when the galaxy was watching. But there are millions of David Rezes on Earth, billions people who have survived impossible things, people who have lost everything and kept going. Emma thought about her own life, the struggles, the failures, the time she had wanted to give up but did not. She had never thought of herself as special, but maybe that was the point. What happens now? She asked. Collective said they would recalculate. What does that mean? It means they are uncertain, and uncertainty is dangerous. For them, they cannot predict us. They cannot put us in a box and know exactly what we will do. That scares them more than any weapon we could build. But they might still attack. They might, and if they do, we will fight. We will probably lose, but we will make them pay for every inch they take. That is all I promise them. That is all any human can promise. He looked at her closely. You are young. You have many years ahead of you. You will see things I cannot imagine, and someday you will be the one standing in the light. Someone will look to you and see what humanity can be. Emma felt the weight of his words settle on her shoulders. I'm not like you, she said. I am not brave. I do not have any legends, neither did I not at first. Legends are not born, they are made one impossible moment at a time. One, he put a hand on her shoulder. Do not try to be me, Emma, be yourself. That is enough, that has always been enough. They stood together in silence, watching the stars. Two humans far from home, carrying the hopes of billions on their shoulders. Outside the window, the galaxy waited. And somewhere in the darkness, the Hollow Collective was calculating. But, for the first time, they did not know what the answer would be. The Hollow Envoy returned on the third day. Emma was already in the chamber when it walked through the doors. The massive creature moved differently now. Its gears clicked faster, its glowing eyes swept across the room like search lights. Something had changed. The assembly fell silent as the envoy took its position in the center of the chamber. The collective has recalculated, it announced. Your species presents variables that require further analysis. However, the original acquisition remains scheduled. The 3-star systems will be consumed. Evacuation time has not been extended. Emma felt her heart sink. Nothing had changed. 2 million humans on New Haven were still going to die. Around her, the other delegates began to react. Some species stood up and started walking toward the exits. The insectoid representatives clicked nervously to each other. The Silver Sea scaled warriors argued among themselves. The galaxy was falling apart. Everyone was looking for a way out, a way to save themselves. Then David stood up. He walked down the steps slowly, his worn coat shifting with each movement. The other delegates watched him approach the envoy, but this time there was something different in the air. This time people were already looking for the exits. The fear was stronger than the hope. David stopped in front of the Hollow Envoy and looked up at its towering form. May I address the assembly? He asked quietly. The assembly leader hesitated. The matter has been decided. The collective has spoken. I'm not speaking to the collective, I'm speaking to everyone else. The leader looked around the chamber, saw the fear, the confusion, the desperation, then nodded slowly. David turned to face the gathered delegates. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy looked back at him. Many had already half risen from their seats, ready to flee. I know what you are thinking, David began. His voice was soft but carried through the chamber. You are thinking about your own worlds, your own people. You are calculating. Just like the collective does, you are measuring the risk and finding that humanity is not worth it. He paused. I understand. I would probably think the same thing if I were you. We are young. We are weak. We have been part of this community for only 50 years. What right do we have to ask you to die for us? The chamber was completely silent now. But I am not here to ask you to die for us. I am here to tell you what we will do. Regardless of your choice, he started walking among the delegates, speaking directly to them. When the collective comes for New Haven, we will fight our 47 ships against their 12,000. We will lose, we know this, we have calculated it ourselves, but we will fight anyway. He passed the insectoid Delegates who watched him with their mirror-like eyes. We will fight because that is what humans do. We fought when we had no fire and wild animals hunted us in the dark. We fought when plagues killed half our people. We fought when our own weapons threatened to destroy our world. He reached the silver-cowled warriors who had stopped arguing to listen. You think you know what weakness is. You see our soft bodies and short lives, and you think we are fragile, but let me tell you what weakness really is. Weakness is giving up. Weakness is accepting what others tell you is inevitable. Weakness is letting fear make your choices for you. He turned back to face the hollow envoy. Humans are not weak. We have never been weak. We crawled out of caves and looked at the stars and said, we will go there. We buried our dead and built monuments and said we will remember. We faced extinction again and said not today. His voice grew stronger. That is the promise I made to the collective. Not that we would win, not that we would survive, but that we would never ever stop. And that promise is not mine alone. It belongs to every human who has ever lived, every human who has ever lost everything and started again. He looked around the chamber one final time. You can leave. You can protect yourselves. I will not blame you, but know this. If humanity falls today, we will fall fighting, and if the collective can take us, they can take anyone. Today it is New Haven. Tomorrow it will be your worlds, your people, your children. He stepped forward directly in front of the hollow envoy. We are not asking you to save us. We are asking you to save yourselves. Stand with us now while you still can. Stand with us and show the collective that this galaxy does not surrender. Silence. Emma held her breath. Entire chamber seemed frozen in time. Then a single delegate stood up, one of the insectoid beings, its mirror eyes reflecting the light. The Ven will stand with humanity. Another delegate rose, member of the silver-scaled warriors. The Dravari remember. We will fight. More and more delegates began to stand. Species that had been ready to flee moments ago now pledged their support. Species that had never joined any conflict in their history chose to join this one. The room filled with voices, promises, commitments. Emma found herself standing, two tears streaming down her face. Hollow Envoy watched all of this with its glowing eyes. Its gears clicked faster and faster, processing information, calculating probabilities, and then it spoke. Variables have exceeded acceptable parameters. The collective requires additional analysis. Acquisition has been postponed indefinitely. Without another word, the envoy turned and walked out of the chamber. The doors closed behind it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the chamber erupted in celebration. Delegates embraced each other. Species that had been enemies cheered together. The impossible had happened. Emma pushed through the crowd looking for David. She found him standing by the human section, surrounded by people wanting to thank him. He accepted their words politely, but his eyes were tired. She waited until the crowd thinned, then approached him. You did it, she said. You united the galaxy. David shook his head. I did not do anything. I just reminded them what they already knew, what everyone knows deep down, that some things are worth fighting for. He looked out at the celebrating delegates. The collective will be back someday. This is not over. It is never over, but today we showed them something they had never seen Before, a galaxy that chose not to be. Afraid, Emma stood beside him, watching. The celebration, what do we do now? She asked. David smiled, the first real smile she had seen from him. Now we do what humans always do, we keep going, we rebuild, we prepare, and when the next impossible challenge comes, we face it. Together, he put a hand on her shoulder. The future is yours now, Emma, make it something worth fighting for. She watched him walk away, disappearing into the crowd. The murmurs of his name still filled the room, but she understood now that it had never been about one man, it had been about all of them, every human who refused to give up, every human who chose hope over fear, every human who kept going. She looked out the window at the stars. Galaxy was waiting, and humanity was